Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Digits Dynasty podcast, where we are counting down the greatest athletes to wear each and every uniform number, regardless of the sport, regardless of the league. Today, we are looking at the number 25. I'm here with Curtis, who I guess traditionally the biggest slugger of each team is wearing number 25, and you think about all these home run guys. Are you the slugger of our team?
We've established that I am the fast runner. I do have the biggest belly, so maybe that puts me at first base with a high slugging percentage. Maybe it just makes me a DH. But I do run fast for a big guy.
Right.
Yeah, I'm the slugger.
Sounds good. How's it going?
It's going good. We're creeping up on a new year here, so
2025. It's exciting to talk about 25.
Yeah, I mean the stars are aligned. We're talking about 25 with the new year of 2025 coming up. You excited for 2025?
Yeah, no reason not to be.
You sound like it.
I feel like there's always so much hype about these new years, so much uncertainty, but so much excitement potential for the new years for these families, and should be a good one.
I'm excited to turn the calendar. I'm excited for a new year. Holidays have been a little chaotic for me, so I'm ready for, once that calendar turns, it feels like everything just kind of settles back down. You get back into your day-to-day, which before the holidays, it's like, oh, the day-to-day grind, it's so hard, it's so this. Then the holidays come, they're fun, but then it's kind of at the end, I'm ready to get back into the day-to-day grind, so to speak. I'm ready to just get back into my routine. I'm getting older now, so routine is important.
True. At 25, it's in sports, the number of points needed to win a set in volleyball under rally scoring rules, except for that fifth set. So as long as you get 2 more points than the other team, once you hit 25, you got that set. Big volleyball guy?
Am I a big volleyball guy? I mean, I don't watch it. I remember in homecoming in high school, there was like, the guys played volleyball as one of the homecoming events to score points for your class. We actually, as sophomores, I think we had to play the juniors. We beat them. And then we played the seniors. And we would have beat them, but as seniors, they just cheated. And we really couldn't do much about it. But we would have won this volleyball match in high school as sophomores against the seniors. But we didn't because they cheated. I'm still holding on to that a little bit today.
Spoken like someone who lost.
Okay.
Actually, in college at UConn, they had, I think it was the same thing, homecoming or spring weekend, whatever they called it. It was oozeball. So it was a whole volleyball tournament, but you play it in like 12 inches of mud. And there's probably, 100 teams, and you'd keep trying to work your way up to the ultimate winner. But one year, I think we won 4 or 5 different rounds. And then other years, you're just kind of there, and you're like, all right, this is a lot of mud. Take showers, and you're find mud for days. Throw out the shoes you were wearing. But it was a fun experience. In college football, schools that are members of NCAA D1 are allowed to provide athletic scholarships to a maximum of 25 new football players. So players who are not previously receiving scholarships every season.
Now, is that 25 full rides? You don't know, probably.
Of course.
I imagine there's limits
maybe
within that 25.
Yeah, maybe there's some partials and kind of adds up to 25. I'm not.
Does it matter now? They're all just getting paid.
That's true.
I saw the Miami coach resigned. Is that right?
That in basketball.
And he's like, well, 8 of my players from the Final Four team entered the portal and decided they wanted to go other places. And then I think this is the same coach that was at George Mason and
worked his way up.
Where else? Rutgers, maybe. I don't know where else, but.
I think he went from George Mason like a year or 2 after they beat UConn, and then went to Miami and made a lot more money.
Yeah.
So are you going to fault this is a coach that's been coaching for 20, 30 years potentially, and really can kind of work their way up the ladder, and these players have 4 years to make as much money as they can. Can't really fault the guys too much. It kind of stinks for you as a coach that you spend all this time recruiting these guys, but be a better team or give them more money.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm kind of on the fence about it. I think they need to find a little middle ground here with the NIL, but for the coach to come out and be like, well, I can't really
coach like this.
These people. I mean, what about the players that were there and the coach recruited them and then they did well, and now he's like, well, thanks for doing well.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to Miami now and get more money.
Or
how are they doing anything different?
Bring in some guy from the transfer portal that might bump one of these guys that got to the Final Four.
So I don't know. These old coaches, It's kind of like, well, we have less control, so we're out. We made our money.
Well, that's why Saban retired, right? Kind of the rumor is.
I think so, probably. I mean, he had been doing it for a long time, and I'm sure it takes a toll on you at Saban's level, but what, this guy made 1 Final Four, 2 maybe with George Mason? Okay. Sure. I don't have much sympathy for him.
No. Yeah, you made your money. Let those guys make theirs.
Exactly. And if you want him, pay him more money. I mean, clearly there's a pay-to-play now.
And
so
Miami, I feel like you got a pretty good potential there. 25 is the atomic number of manganese, atomic symbol Mn. It's a silvery metal often found in minerals in combination with iron, primarily found in the production of steel and other alloys, found in batteries, fertilizers, and animal feed supplements. Manganese is pretty crucial for various industrial processes and also biological functions, playing a role in enzyme systems and bone health. So you'll find it trace elements in nuts, seeds, whole grains, teas, and coffees. So I think it's not a bad thing for you. Just don't have too much. Have those trace amounts.
And like anything else, in moderation. Manganese in moderation.
That's what they always say.
That's what I've always gone by. Not to be confused with magnesium.
That's different.
Which always got me as a kid. I don't know why you're calling it manganese and then magnesium.
Oh,
always confused me on the chemistry test.
That's what they do. They try to trick students.
I know.
Big fan of Adele. She had her 2015 album 25, which was named for her age in that year.
Hello.
That was that album. Won the Grammy for Best Album and Best Pop Vocal Album. It went 11 times platinum. But yeah, Hello was the big song
now,
that one.
If you call 1,000 times, are you a stalker at that point? I mean, she called 1,000 times.
At some point you just gotta move on.
Like, he's not answering.
How are you?
Good album. I love Adele. I do love Adele. It's sometimes I'll play it around the house, and it's one of those artists that you can kind of listen to most of their music, and it always kind of sounds good. But I do like that album, and I do like Adele. Hasn't come out with any new music recently, has she?
I don't think so. I think 19 was her first big album. Then she did 25.
So she names her albums after
21
her age.
Maybe she had. I don't know.
30, 29.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
We're huge Adele fans.
We are clearly.
But yeah, I'm a fan of 25. And we watched something a few years ago where she played a concert at the Space Center in L.A. You know this place that
the Dome?
It's kind of a dome. It's like a white building.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
No.
It's near the Hollywood sign, I think, but it's like a space observing building in L.A.
Okay.
It was really good. It was like live, and all the Hollywood elites were there. It was a nice little private concert. I couldn't afford tickets.
Okay, so you just watched it on TV?
We watched it on TV, yeah, like the rest of the peasants.
You weren't one of the elites?
No. But I mean, she's really good live. I think anytime I hear her live, it sounds just like the album. I
saw one clip where she entered I think it was an Adele lookalike or sound-alike contest.
I saw this.
And she acted like she was all nervous, and it's her turn to sing, and all the other contestants are looking at each other like, she's either really good or that's her. And then there's one woman, she's like, no, that's not her. And everyone's like, no, that's definitely her. And then I think once you really hit belt some of those notes, you're like, yeah, that's definitely her.
They were like, okay, that's her. She was also on, Carpool Karaoke.
Yeah, James Corden.
James Corden, that's right. And she raps this Nicki Minaj song.
Huh.
And she knows every single lyric. Seems like a cool person to hang out with.
Yeah, I feel artists just seem that way where they can either memorize these things so well,
that's
or
true.
I think once you're an artist, it's all kind of the same. You're able to really specialize in your genre, but it's like athletes. Once you're an athlete, you're pretty good at most sports. You just are really, really good at one of them. Big mark that we're both looking for here. Silver wedding anniversary is 25 years.
Silver.
That's a long, long, long time. Hope my wife likes me long enough.
We're about a third of the way there. You're probably not too far ahead of us.
A little ahead, but yeah, about a third.
How many years have you been married now? We'll edit out the delay.
I know, my gosh. Now 2016, 2025 will be 10.
Ooh.
So we'll be hitting our 10-year anniversary this.
Do you know what 10
year.
is? Is that what?
I usually remember our anniversary. My wife has not remembered it as well as she should.
Usually the other way around.
I know.
Usually the guy is the one that, what day is it? And, yeah, I mean, listen, I'm always on your side. So if you need me to say something to her to remind her, I will.
10 years is going to be aluminum or tin.
Well, which is it? Aluminum or tin?
I
do the classic. There's like a classic and a modern calendar.
It says tin or aluminum.
Okay. Now, do you follow the classic calendar?
Yeah, I'd gotten, for our 8th one, it was bronze. I'd gotten her I'd try to, if we decided we're doing presents that year.
I do try to follow. I like that there's this classic anniversary calendar. It's also a nice little guiding tool for me because it's like, okay, I have to buy a present. My mind goes blank. I don't know what to get you. So it's nice to be like, oh, aluminum. Get her a 6-pack of Busch Light.
Yeah, or some aluminum foil for when she wraps up the cooking at the end of the day.
For when people accuse me of debunking the man on the moon, I can wear my tinfoil hat.
Go. She'll appreciate that. 25, of course, is the minimum age to be a candidate for election to the United States House of Representatives. Of course, we have 435 members total.
Maxwell Frost is the youngest member of the 118th Congress at age 27. He succeeded one-term Representative Madison Cawthorn, who was the youngest person elected to U.S. Congress since Jed Johnson Jr. in 1964, the second youngest congressman in United States history.
Interesting. The oldest representative is Grace Napolitano at 86 from the great state of California.
Term limits.
Average age of the House of Representatives is a little bit younger at 57, though.
I'm okay with 57 being average. Like, I feel like 57-year-olds should be running our country. They're old enough to have lived long enough to know what's best. They're young enough to not be senile and, without getting too political, freezing at the microphone and looking like they died on the spot.
Sticking with politics here, our 25th president of the United States was William McKinley. Served from 1897 until his assassination in 1901. He was assassinated on the grounds of the Pan American Expo at the Temple of Music in Buffalo in 1901 by Leon Frank Kolgash.
For assassinating a president, he's not a household name.
Yeah, that's interesting. You got Lee Harvey Oswald, you got John Wilkes Booth, you got Sirhan. He killed one of those.
I mean, usually you get moved to the top of the list of remembered horrible people.
I was going to say, is it because it's like Lincoln was a beloved president, Kennedy was a beloved president,
yeah,
and McKinley was one of the presidents? And
McKinley was succeeded by Theodore Roosevelt, who was the youngest president ever, when we're going back to age, at age 42. I didn't realize he was that young. Like his little pictures with his glasses.
He seems so old, yeah.
He seems like this rigid old man who's, been to 15 wars and, rode his horse from coast to coast, multiple times. And he was only 42.
Wow. And McKinley was shot while shaking hands with the public when the anarchists shot him twice in the abdomen. He actually died 8 days later of gangrene caused by the wounds. And I feel like I read somewhere where had that happened in today's society in 2024, I think he would have survived. I think it was a lot of people really trying to reach in, get the bullet, and sanitary conditions weren't as popular as they are now.
People just walking by, sticking their hands in the president's abdomen.
I don't know if it was anybody just walking by.
Who's got the smallest hands? Get in here. Yeah, I doubt he would have died of gangrene in today's world. They would have had that cleaned up in no time.
He was the last president to have served in the American Civil War, and the only one to begin his service as an enlisted man and ended it as a major. After the war, he settled in Canton, Ohio, home of the Football Hall of Fame, where he practiced law and married Ida Saxton. I actually, I'm kind of a history nerd, but when I was in Buffalo...
you're just a nerd. You can leave out the
No, I say it's like one and the same. And when we were up there in Buffalo, I made my wife, we went to the site where he was shot, and
really?
There's like a plaque there. It's like in the middle of the road, though. It's not really, there's no big kind of happening there. It's just kind of little plaque on the ground that said a president of the United States was shot here.
I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to build
That's true.
a building there, put a post office. Like, what are they supposed to do?
It's true. I guess I've also been to Ford's Theater where Lincoln was shot too. So maybe there's just a nerd, I guess.
I have been to Ford's Theater. I've also been to Gettysburg where Lincoln gave the big speech, the Gettysburg Address. And again, there's nothing there that says he stood here or, there's actually a cemetery there. And it's I don't have the right words for it. When you're there, it's
powerful.
It's very powerful.
Moving.
It definitely takes you to a different place where you think about how life must have been for everyone involved, from the soldiers of both armies to the slaves and to the common man and to the politicians. I mean, you can really, really be taken to a different place just by being there. Very hallowed grounds, I should say. You definitely feel like you're in a place that will always be Gettysburg. That you can never change what happened there. Very neat. I would highly recommend going there. Anyways, can we get a little bit lighter on our sports podcast?
Move into the sports here. Get the numbers, get the athletes. Try to figure out who the greatest 25 was. There's a lot of Hall of Famers, guys that really impacted their sports. Start with football. You got Fred Biletnikoff, the wide receiver, most well known for the Oakland Raiders. He was a Super Bowl champion in Super Bowl 11, for which he was named the Super Bowl MVP. In college, there is the Fred Biletnikoff Award, which is awarded annually by the Tallahassee Quarterback Club Foundation to the nation's outstanding receiver in college football. Since 1994, it's been named in his honor. And he was named the Walter Camp Man of the Year by the Walter Camp Football Foundation in recognition of his public service and contributions to football in 2016. But as a NFL player, he was a 6-time Pro Bowler and really, I feel like was a pretty solid wide receiver before wide receivers were kind of who they are today. But he was also inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1988, was ranked 94 on the Sporting News' list of the 100 greatest football players. LaShawn McCoy, a 6-time Pro Bowler as well, 2-time Super Bowl champion. He was in the All 2010 Hall of Fame team and finished the 2010s decade having gained the most rushing yards in the NFL during the decade with more than 10,000 yards, and retired with exactly 15,000 yards from scrimmage for his career. Played for the Eagles, Bills, Chiefs, and Bucks, and actually won the Super Bowl in his last 2 years with the Chiefs and the Bucks.
He won it with the Chiefs, huh?
Yeah.
And the Bucks.
I think 2 teams where he wasn't the main guy, but after his career, I think he earned those. Jamal Charles, most well known for playing with the Chiefs. He is a 4-time Pro Bowler and has the highest yards per carry for any running back that has over 1,000 rushing attempts. 5.4 yard per carry average. That's
a lot. That's a big number. Big 12 outdoor champion in the 100-meter dash in 2006 for Jamal Charles. And a 4-time All-American in track and field. So, I mean, he was more than just a football player.
Yeah, it makes sense why you get 5 yards per rush. Got that speed, that burst. Pow.
And he backed up Larry Johnson. You remember him?
Yep. I think he had 2,000 yards.
No, the most he ever went for was 1,789.
Okay, I think in college, I think he had a 2,000-yard season.
Penn State?
Penn State. Moving on to the other side of the football, we got from the Legion of Boom, got Richard Sherman, selected to the Pro Bowl 5 times and voted All-Pro 5 times, and led the NFL in interceptions in 2013, which is the same year that he helped the Seahawks win their first Super Bowl. He is regarded as one of the greatest cornerbacks of all time. Remember that one championship game, I think, that year, but he was against Michael Crabtree. It was like that final throw, and Sherman knocked it down. I think his teammate might have intercepted it, but he had that one interview with Aaron Andrews, and he just went off. And he was like, "When you try me with a sorry receiver like Crabtree, that's the result you're gonna get. Don't you ever talk about me. Don't you open your mouth about the best, or I'm gonna shut it for you real quick." And I remember he said, "Don't you ever talk about you," or something like. And Aaron Andrews like, "Who's talking about you?"
Aaron Andrews is like, "What happened?
What's happening right now? Why are you yelling at me?" He was featured on the cover of Madden NFL 15. But
Did he get hurt? Was it the curse?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think he had there'll be another podcast. We'll talk about our
the Madden curse.
But yeah, he's always a shutdown defender there. Just a great cornerback. Always got to be wary of throwing his way.
He was definitely the anchor of the Legion of Boom, and they were ferocious backfield or what do you call the defensive side?
Backfield.
Defensive backfield. Yeah, I mean they were all over the place. They'd hit you. They'd shut you down. They'd
hit you
they'd
again.
Score. They were stacked on that side of the ball, but Richard Sherman was clearly the leader of that group.
And the loudest.
The loudest. I actually played wide receiver at Stanford, though.
Yeah, I did know that.
And
for Jim Harbaugh. Moving on to a couple quick guys just to mention in hockey. Joe Nieuwendyk won the Calder Trophy with the Flames, a 3-time Stanley Cup winner with the Flames, the Stars, and the Devils. He had 564 goals, 562 assists, and he had won the Conn Smythe and the King Clancy Trophy, and he wore 25 for his career. Jacques Lemaire spent 12 years with the Canadiens and won 8 Stanley Cups. He's in the Hall of Fame and was listed as one of NHL's 100 greatest players. He was on that team with Rocket Richard and Henri Richard, who we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Yes, Henri.
And then the last guy, a local legend here, Dave Andreychuk. He spent 11 years with the Sabres, 4 years with the Lightning. He's the first player to touch the Stanley Cup as a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning, as the captain of that team who won it in 2004. He had played 22 years before winning the Cup, which was the longest in history. I think up there with, I know Ray Bourque played, I think, 23 years. But Andreychuk has a iconic statue outside Amalie Arena where the Lightning are currently playing, holding up the Stanley Cup. It's right when you enter in, pretty iconic.
I went to game 1 of that NHL
in 2004
Stanley Cup final. They lost 4-3 to the Calgary Flames. Calgary had a pretty good presence of fans, but Andreychuk had a bar across the street for a while. It's not that called that anymore, but it used to be a watering hole for pre-game, pre-concert, pre-anything you were going to do there at the stadium. I think at the time it was called St. Pete Times Forum, but yeah, I mean a legend there at Tampa for bringing that first cup.
Surprised they haven't retired his number in Tampa Bay.
I don't think he played there long enough.
Yeah, I guess you probably need to play a little bit longer. I think they only have a couple of guys. I think, Le Cavalier and
St. Louis. I think he's 26.
Yeah. Le Cavalier was 4.
There's...
I think it's just those two.
There's just the two now?
I think so.
There's going to be a couple more here.
Yeah,
now they've put a couple cups on
it's been quite the run.
On the rafters there.
Got a 91 up there with Stamkos. Moving on to basketball, we have, not that they made a huge impact as far as stats, but Doc Rivers and his son, Austin Rivers, both wore the number 25 during their playing career. When Doc coached Austin, he was the first NBA coach to do so, to coach his son. Robert Horry, he won 2 of his 7 NBA Finals championships wearing the number 25. And that was with the San Antonio Spurs. Casey Jones, he won 8 championships in 9 years for the Boston Celtics. He also played college basketball at the University of San Francisco alongside Bill Russell. They won the NCAA championship in 1955 and 56. During their time with the Dons, Russell and Jones led the team to a 55-game win streak, including an undefeated 29-0 record during the 55-56 season, helped pioneer a play that would later be known as the alley-oop, which I can't imagine the basketball world today without the alley-oop.
I mean, one of the most exciting plays in sports, right?
Always fun. Always exciting to watch. Yeah, I could never dunk, so I could never.
I know.
Never do that, but
I could pass the alley-oop.
Yeah, it was
be half of the alley-oop
on the front half. I could. Nobody better. Jones also played with Russell on the U.S. national team that won gold medal at the 56 Olympics in Australia, while defeating their opponents by an unsurpassed average margin of 53.5 points per game. He's one of only 8 players in basketball history to achieve the basketball Triple Crown, winning an NCAA championship, NBA championship, and an Olympic gold medal. In NBA history, only his former teammates Bill Russell and Sam Jones have won more championships during their playing careers. Russell, of course, has 11, and Sam Jones has 10. It's a pretty iconic career. Played 9 years, win 8 championships, and 2 more in college, get a gold medal. That's pretty good. Good resume. Chet Walker is in the Hall of Fame. Played for 13 years, is currently in the Hall of Fame. He's a 7-time All-Star who helped lead the 66, 67, 76ers to a title. Despite sharing the floor with Wilt Chamberlain, Hal Greer, and Billy Cunningham, Walker scored 19.3 points and 8.1 rebounds a game that year. He averaged 18.2 points a game over his whole career. He co-produced the 1989 television series A Mother's Courage, based on the life of Mary Thomas, mother of NBA Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas. It won an Emmy for Outstanding Children's Program. Talked about Isaiah a little while ago.
Yeah,
but he
number
had
11.
I think tough childhood, but growing up in Chicago and
had a big family. We told the story of Bobby Knight coming to his house and
brother kind of
his brother's like, starts a fight with him. And I think immediately his mom was like, "Okay, you're going to play for this guy because we need some discipline." Underrated, honestly, as one of the greats to ever play.
Nick Anderson wore 25 for the Orlando Magic. Nick was the first draft pick in the franchise's history, as the Magic were an expansion team that season. He had a career-high 50 points off the bench in 1993. 50 off the bench. That's pretty crazy.
I mean, are you really coming off the bench if you have time to score 50? What, did they play a couple minutes?
I know, give him like 30 seconds.
All right, you're playing well. We'll just keep you in the rest of the game. Was he a starter after that? Did we keep him on the bench? I have a lot of questions about this.
In the Eastern Conference Finals in 95, the Magic faced the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan, who had recently returned from a baseball career wearing the number 45 instead of his previously more famous number 23. At the end of Game 1, Anderson famously stripped Jordan from behind, leading to the game-winning basket for the Magic. Maybe stupidly, he later commented that Jordan, quote, didn't look like the old Michael Jordan, and that number 45 doesn't explode like number 23 used to. The next game, Jordan warming up, he wore his Bulls jacket, his warm-up jacket, got announced, number 45, Michael Jordan, came out. As soon as they were ready to tip the ball, he takes off his warm-ups, and he's wearing number 23. And then he dropped 38 in a Bulls win. The Magic did end up winning the series to advance to their first NBA Finals, where they were not successful. It just seems like not a smart move to trash talk Michael Jordan.
Yeah, if I have a list of people I'm not talking smack to, Michael Jordan's on it. Somebody later in the show is also going to be on it, but Jordan can be angry at you even if you didn't say anything. So to actually say something,
if you're thinking it,
you're
also
asking
knows
for
that.
it. I mean, Nick Anderson, sure, great player, top draft pick, but it's Michael Jordan. Shut your mouth and just play. Now, I do find it interesting, Michael Jordan actually lost in the playoffs. I thought he never lost a game in his entire life.
That's true. In the finals, he is 6-0. So hold that on to your stats when we move on to 23.
How many playoffs? How well has he done in the playoffs without Scottie Pippen? Has he ever made the playoffs without Scottie?
This is a 25 episode.
I have so many questions about Michael Jordan's stats.
You can save your Michael Jordan bashing for another episode.
Okay. My wife's family is from Chicago. Big Chicago Bulls fans. I don't care about the Bulls. Like, I think Michael Jordan is amazing. I don't think he's the greatest player of all time, but anyways.
Excuse me.
He's second, which is great. It's like Babe Ruth. I mean, the longer time goes on, the bigger the legend becomes. Wait till LeBron retires. That's all I gotta say. You're gonna miss the guy. You're gonna miss him. We're not on 23. We're on 25. So I'll move on.
And I think our biggest sport, a lot more guys we're going to talk about here, I think. But baseball, starting with Tommy John, the Bionic Man, 4-time All-Star, 26-year career, 24 of those wearing 25 with the Yankees, White Sox, Dodgers, Angels, and Athletics. Of course, he is most well known for a surgery that bears his name. He has the second most wins, 288, of any player since 1900 that's not in the Hall of Fame. The other one that has more than him is Roger Clemens.
I mean, he played 24 years.
It's 26 years.
26?
24.
Well, 24 is as number 25.
Yeah. In a 2016 interview, he pointed out that his 164 wins following his surgery were one shy of the amount that Hall of Famer Sandy Koufax had over his entire career. I think had Tommy John's surgery existed when Sandy Koufax was playing, there's a very good chance that Sandy Koufax would have extended his career just a bit. But the surgery, of course, is a graft procedure where the ulnar collateral ligament in the medial elbow is replaced with either a tendon from elsewhere in the patient's body or with one from a deceased donor. The procedure is very common among collegiate and professional athletes in several sports, particularly baseball. Surgery is performed to restore optimal function for repetitive elbow movements or specifically throwing ability, often expanding the careers of professional athletes. The surgery has been done more than once during many athletes' careers. The procedure was devised in 1974 by orthopedic surgeon Frank Jobe, a Los Angeles Dodgers team physician. At the time of the original surgery, Jobe estimated the chance for success at 1 in 100. By 2009, the odds of complete recovery had risen to 85 to 92%. It took about a year to come back from surgery. Before the surgery, he had won 124 games. He had won 164 games after his surgery, retiring at age 46 in 1989.
Wow. Do you think he, can still raise his arm and feed himself? And
I'll just get Tommy John surgery again.
I didn't know you could get it more than once.
Yeah, it just seems unnecessary. Like at some point, you're like, all right, clearly you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't do it again. But you might argue that, especially in this day and age, so he is not in the Hall of Fame. And I think he had the highest percentage of vote he had was like 30%. But you have to imagine his contributions to the sport with this surgery is probably higher than most any athlete there, and is almost deserving of the Hall of Fame as his contributions in addition to his playing time.
I'd have to agree. I believe it's Dan Patrick that says, can you tell the story of the sport without the person? And if you can't, then that gets you in the Hall of Fame. I mean, Tommy John has become synonymous with pitchers every single year. And 26 seasons, I mean, yeah. I feel like he's a little underrated with kind of the career that he had.
Yeah, whereas before him, your career is over, but this is no longer a kind of career-ending situation. And you said about 30% of surgeries might not result in you pitching in the major leagues again, but to have the success rate of almost 90%, probably more now, is pretty remarkable. But there are 2 players currently in the Hall of Fame who have undergone the surgery and are inducted in the National Baseball Hall of Fame, Paul Molitor and John Smoltz.
Only 2. That surprises me. I feel like everyone's had it. Yeah. I feel like everyone gets it. There's another pitcher before we get into these big old sluggers that I want to mention. Jim Abbott, who played from 1989 to 1999, threw a no-hitter on September 4th of 1993, and had a very, very successful career with only one hand.
One hand?
He was born without a right hand and went on to play for the Angels, the Yankees, the White Sox, and the Brewers. But really unbelievable. Win-loss record, 87 and 108. Okay, not great, but not terrible. 87 wins.
For one
ERA.
hand.
Yeah, ERA 4.2. 888 strikeouts. Really unbelievable to get to the major league level with that sort of, I hesitate to say, disability.
Yeah, he would grip the ball in his hand, and the glove would be on his other arm. And then he would throw the ball, and then kind of in one motion be able to put his fingers in the glove and be potentially ready for fielding. Stick it under his arm, grab the ball, throw it to first. Pretty impressive to watch. I'm sure, yeah, he has perfected over his career. He was on an episode of Boy Meets World when he appears as himself to motivate Corey Matthews after Mr. Feeney. After Mr. Feeney discourages his baseball dreams, Abbott encourages Corey to never give up on his dreams, but also emphasizes the importance of education, which I'm sure Feeney liked. Corey's friends bring baseball for Abbott to sign, and Corey is inspired to keep trying. I haven't watched the new revival of Boy Meets World, but I don't think that Corey Matthews ever made it to the major leagues. But did stay in education. He was a teacher.
Good for Corey Matthews.
He's Philadelphia's best.
Jim Abbott did go 2 for 21 in 1999 with the Milwaukee Brewers as a hitter. I mean, this guy was clearly an athlete. Also tripled in spring training.
Jeez.
In 1991. In high school as a senior, Abbott hit 7 home runs and batted .427.
It's crazy.
He wrapped his left hand around the bat and the stub of his right arm to generate power.
Wow.
Yeah, I wanted to mention Jim Abbott. I always enjoyed getting his baseball cards. and then watching him play on TV.
And again, such an inspiration.
Absolutely an inspiration.
Nothing should be able to hold you back. Moving on to the sluggers who wore the number 25. Mark McGwire had 583 home runs, 12-time All-Star, 3-time Silver Slugger. He won 2 World Series championships, one with the Oakland A's as a player in '89 and one with the St. Louis Cardinals as a coach in 2011. One of the most prolific home run hitters in baseball history. At the time of his retirement, he was 5th most in MLB history with home runs. He's currently 11th. He does still hold the Major League career record for at-bats per home run ratio at 10.6. The former record holder for both home runs in a single season with 70 and 98, and home runs hit by a rookie, 49 in 1987. He led the major leagues in home runs in 5 different seasons and set the major league record for home runs hit in a 4-season period from 96 to 99 with 245. I believe despite all this, he never won MVP. I think Sosa got it in 98.
But McGwire was never much of a fielder.
Yeah, he didn't do anything other than
hit home runs, and I think he struck out a lot. He didn't have a lot of hits. He just would hit home runs. That was his thing.
See, one thing he didn't do a lot of, he did not hit a lot of triples. He only had 6 career triples, which is the fewest career triples of any player with at least 5,000 at-bats. A 5-mile stretch of Interstate 70 in St. Louis near Busch Stadium was named Mark McGwire Highway to honor his 70 home run achievement, along with his various good works for the city. In May 2010, they passed the state bill to change it to Mark Twain Highway. He is not in the Hall of Fame. The highest percentage of votes that he got was 23.6 in 2008. For the next couple players that we talk about, it's amazing how many home runs they hit and how little amount of these guys are in the Hall of Fame. I know we're getting to the big one.
Don't get me started on that, but before we move on, McGwire played college at USC. Had some pretty decent teammates there at USC. Randy Johnson, and then a couple of football players were also on his team. Jack Del Rio and Rodney Peete. So pretty good team there at USC.
Another home run hitter, Rafael Palmeiro. We're going to talk about him, period.
Is he in the Hall of Fame?
He's definitely not in the Hall of Fame. He is a 4-time All-Star, 3-time Gold Glove, 2-time Silver Slugger. He is one of only 7 players in Major League history to be a member of both the 500 home run club and the 3,000 hit club. Days after recording his 3,000th hit, Palmeiro received a 10-game suspension for testing positive for an anabolic steroid. His former Rangers teammate Jose Canseco identified him as a fellow steroid user in his 2005 book and claimed he personally injected Palmeiro with steroids. On March 17, 2005, Palmeiro appeared at a congressional hearing about steroids, and while under oath, denied ever using steroids and stated, "Let me start by telling you this. I have never used steroids. Period. I don't know how to say it more clearly than that. Never."
Yeah, that McGwire-Palmeiro congressional hearing was was a little hard to watch. They were just so bad. But again, why is that taking up congressional time? Is this really critical to the progress of our country? I guess we don't want kids taking steroids, but
yeah. Palmeiro had returned to Camden Yards following his suspension, and this was the date that they had planned as a Rafael Palmeiro Appreciation Day in celebration of his 500 home run, 3,000 hit celebration milestone. It was canceled after his suspension. He's one of 6 players to hit at least 200 home runs for 2 different clubs. He finished his career with 2,831 games played, the most by any player who has never played in the World Series.
Both McGwire and Palmeiro are no longer even eligible for the Hall of Fame. But you have to maintain a certain percentage of votes to remain on the ballot.
And you only have like 10 years, I think, right?
Yeah, and they both have fallen off of the ballot.
Very quickly.
But the Cubs, I'll tell you, they're so good at trading away MLB greats, especially from the 80s. Palmeiro, drafted and played for the Cubs for his first couple of years and then goes on to have 500 home runs and 3,000 hits, but not with the Cubs.
Andrew Jones spent 14 of his 17 years wearing the number 25. He's a 5-time All-Star and a 10-time Gold Glove winner. He hit a Major League leading 51 home runs, surpassing Hank Aaron and Eddie Matthews' single-season club records. He finished second to Pujols for MVP in 2005, but he was definitely a solid hitter, but his defense, I feel like every week you'd be seeing him on top 10 plays for some incredible catch. A big home run hitter who is in the Hall of Fame Jim Thome, who hit 611 of his 612 career home runs with the number 25, which is 8th most all-time. He was elected into the Hall of Fame with 89.8% of the vote and is a 5-time All-Star. He is the career leader in walk-off home runs with 13. He had that unique batting stance in which he held the bat out with his right hand, pointed at right field before the pitcher threw, something he first saw in The Natural. I feel like you can't find a better guy. You never hear anything bad about Jim Thome. He had a consistently positive attitude, a very gregarious personality. He is a very good philanthropist during most of his playing career and was honored as a 2-time Marvin Miller Man of the Year Award, a Lou Gehrig Memorial Award, and the Roberto Clemente Award for his community involvement. In his youth, he snuck into the Cubs clubhouse at Wrigley Field in an unsuccessful attempt to obtain an autograph from his favorite player, Dave Kingman. Though he received signatures from several other players, this experience influenced him to be generous with signing autographs for fans during his playing career. He joined the 500 home run club by hitting a walk-off home run against Dustin Mosley of the Angels, and he became the 23rd player to reach this milestone, and the third in the 2007 MLB season, others being Frank Thomas, Alex Rodriguez, and was the first to do it with a walk-off home run.
What an iconic moment to get your 500th on that walk-off. Love that, because he's always been kind of the quiet, good guy.
He just does his job.
His sweet swing, and what a fun way to see him hit 500.
He became the 4th Major League player to hit 100 home runs with 3 different teams, joining Reggie Jackson, Darrell Evans, and Alex Rodriguez. In a 2007 poll of Major League players, he was tied with Mike Sweeney for the second friendliest player, behind Sean Casey. After Thome hit his 600th home run, Twins closer Joe Nathan said, "He is the world's nicest man." Teammate Michael Kadire said, "He is the nicest, gentlest, kindest guy you will ever meet. To everything except the baseball, he still hits that really hard."
No titles?
He did not win a championship.
No titles for Thome, although that 95 Indians team, the fact that they didn't win one. Can I go through their lineup real quick just to appreciate?
That's a team.
It's like a Hall of Fame team. Kenny Lofton, Omar Vizquel, Carlos Baerga, Albert Bell, Eddie Murray, Manny Ramirez, Paul Sorrento, and Sandy Alomar Jr. was like batting 8th, maybe 9th. Those are all all-stars.
Yeah,
that's
crazy.
Every player I just mentioned is an all-star, and somehow didn't wrap up the series that year.
In a piece for Philadelphia Magazine discussing Thome's Baseball Hall of Fame prospects, sports writer Steven Silver wrote, "It's not just the numbers. Thanks to his gregarious personality, Thome is the rare athlete who played in several cities and was beloved everywhere he went. Saw the Twins and Phillies play each other in Philadelphia when Thome was with the Twins, and the same 2 teams in Minnesota 2 years later when Thome was a Philly, and the opposing crowd cheered Thome both times, even when he hit home runs for the road team. Thome was similarly loved in his long stints in Cleveland and Chicago, as well as his shorter runs in Los Angeles and Baltimore."
Definitely helps when you put up the numbers, especially in Philly.
Yeah, and when you don't hear anything bad about him off the field. He's just always smiling. Just seemed like a great guy. The next guy on the list, noted for his combination of power hitting and speed, he was the first player to have more than 2 seasons of 30 home runs and 30 stolen bases, doing so a record 5 times. This is Bobby Bonds. This record was matched only by his son, Barry, and he was the first to accomplish the feat in both leagues. He became the second player to hit 300 home runs and steal 300 bases, joining Willie Mays. Together with Barry, he is part of baseball's most renowned father-son combination, holding the record for combined home runs, RBI, and stolen bases. He's a 3-time All-Star and a 3-time Golden Glove winner.
We had mentioned a few weeks ago that Bobby and Barry missed being father-son 40-40 members by 1 home run or 1 stolen base.
Yeah, something like that.
1 of something, and Bobby missed it by 1.
But Bobby had a son named Barry, who has the most home runs in Major League history. I think Barry Bonds, he was an early adoptee of our advice of trying to become the greatest of a certain number, because he was wearing 24 with the Pirates, then moved over to the Giants where his godfather, actually Willie Mays, was wearing the number 24. And so he said, whoa, I'm not going to be able to top that. And even though Willie Mays gave him permission to wear the number 24, And Barry said, no, my dad wore 25 here. I'll wear 25. He had a pretty solid career with the Giants wearing the number 25. 586 of his home runs were hit with the Giants wearing the number 25. And 5 of the 7 total MVPs that he won were wearing the number 25. 12 out of his 15 years with the Giants, he was receiving MVP votes and was a 12-time All-Star, 6-time Silver Slugger, and 5-time Golden Glove winner. At some point, I'm going to give you some time. I don't know when you want to take that, but he probably the most feared hitter in history.
By far. We have some stats to back it up, but by far the most feared hitter of all time.
With 2 outs in the 9th inning of a game in '98 against the Diamondbacks, Bonds became the 5th player in baseball history to be given an intentional walk with the bases loaded. The others were all done before 1944. To say, I am willing to walk this person so that 4 runs don't score and will only accept 1 run. Like, that's the intimidation that this guy had was just remarkable.
Yeah, he has that. And then he was also walked 41 times with nobody on base.
Which makes more sense between the two.
I guess.
I don't get why 41 is the answer and it's not more.
No other player has seen this happen more than 10 times. So there are some that have been walked with nobody on base, but Bonds had a whopping 41.
And I think to date, he still has more intentional walks, despite not having played in the last 15 years, than the entire Tampa Bay Rays organization.
Love that. He has 688 intentional walks total. Do you know who is second?
I believe it's Pujols.
Pujols with 292.
Less than half that. We're going to go through just some crazy stats that just sound unbelievable. From 2001 to 2004, in the 181 games he did not record a hit, he had an on-base percentage of .414. And in 2004, he reached base 376 times, and he only had 373 at-bats.
Wild. That is one of my favorite stats in all of sports. 376 times on base, but you only went to bat 373. Now,
of course, walks.
For those of you that may not know, if you walk, that doesn't count as an at-bat. So he walked so many times that he surpassed his actual at-bats.
Yeah, that year he had 135 hits, 232 walks, and 9 hit by pitches for that 376 number.
Barry Bonds, the only member of the 500-500 club, meaning he had 500 home runs and 500 stolen bases. The only member.
And he's...
If the Hall of Fame voters are listening, the only member of 500-500.
He's also the only member of the 350-350, given that same thing. No one else has had 350 of both.
I didn't realize that. So he's 150 ahead of
at least. Yeah.
And no one's doing this.
No.
Now, steroids are not.
So he won 7 MVPs over the course of his career. No one else has won more than 3. If you strip him of all 7 of his MVP seasons, he still has 440 homers with 359 stolen bases. Even if you said he started juicing in 2000, he started using steroids in 2000, his numbers before that, 445 homers, 423 doubles, a 409 on-base percentage, 3 MVPs, 8 Gold Gloves. If he retired at that point, before he took a single steroid, I don't know when he started taking steroids, but...
He didn't take steroids, according to him.
It's just... these numbers are just incredible. As fans, do we not pay for the greatest athletes to do the greatest things?
Listen, take the steroids. I don't care. They're basically gladiators, right? We're just paying them to destroy their bodies.
Dance, athletes, dance.
30 or more home runs in 13 consecutive seasons. You know, I was looking at the players who wore the number 25 and what their WAR is. Barry Bonds. Okay, so let's just... Jim Thome had a WAR of 73.1. Pretty good. This is exceptional.
And this is WAR wins above replacement, which means like if you had to replace this person with like an average player, how many more wins you'd get by having Barry Bonds or Jim Thome or the athlete. Just for the listeners out there.
So Jim Thome, 73.1. How many games are in an MLB season?
162.
Okay. Barry Bonds, 162.8.
That's a lot of wins.
It's like triple Jim Thome's. The only other person that even like sniffs that is Ricky Henderson, but he only played one season at that with the Dodgers in 2003. He had 111. But that WAR stat is really what, people look at to see how great you were. And 162.8, that's an absolutely absurd number.
Now, if he had retired after his age 27 season, rather than signing with the Giants, he would have done so with a 50.1 career WAR, which is more than 42 Hall of Fame position players. Right now, if you pick any two players in the Hall of Fame, Barry Bonds has more MVP awards than both of them combined. Any two.
But he also played the field. He has the most putouts as a left fielder with 5,226.
He had gold gloves. Like, he was obviously a speedy guy. He got to a lot of the balls. We talked about Rick Ankiel a couple weeks ago. For his career, Barry Bonds was 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts against Rick Ankiel.
Attaboy, Rick. That's something you tell your kids. I wasn't scared of Bonds.
On the other end of that, Barry Bonds batted 9 times against Guillermo Mota. He had 1 home run and walked 8 times. So his on-base percentage was 5.
Barry Bonds has 7 consecutive plate appearances with a walk. And also reached base 15 consecutive plate appearances. 15 times went up to the plate and reached all 15 times consecutively. Yeah, 8-time Gold Glove Award winner.
26.3% of Bonds' career plate appearances ended with either a home run or a walk. From 2001 to 2004, this number was 39.5%.
With all that said, he did not reach that 3,000 hit milestone.
Just shy, right?
2,935.
But in one more season.
Didn't bat 300 either. Only batted 298. Didn't get 2,000 RBIs. He had 1,996.
Ooh, that would have been nice too. That would have been a solid mark to get.
So if he could have got, 65 more hits and 4 more RBIs, he'd be 3,700 and 2,000 with another 500 stolen bases.
And so, Curtis, is he in the Hall of Fame?
He's in my Hall of Fame. He's at the top of the charts. I think arguably him and someone else who isn't in the Hall of Fame are the 2 best baseball players to ever live. And I'm speaking of Barry Bonds and Pete Rose. Not in the Hall of Fame for 2 different reasons, but when I think of the best baseball players, Pete Rose is the best hitter. I think you could talk about Ichiro as well, but Pete Rose is the best hitter. Charlie Hustle. Barry Bonds is the most dominant baseball player, perhaps one of the most dominant athletes, up along with Gretzky.
But yes, as far as baseball players go, you mentioned earlier, Dan Patrick says for Hall of Fame people, can you tell the story without this person or with this person? And you can't. Barry Bonds is this 10-year stretch. You can't not mention his name.
It's almost like not even real life, what we were watching when he was playing.
If Wayne Gretzky wasn't in the Hall of Fame, would that be a disservice to the entire sport of hockey?
Now, he did get close. He did reach 66% of votes in his 10th and final year of eligibility. He needed 75% to get in. In 2022, given the opportunity to be voted in via the Contemporary Baseball Era Committee, he also fell short. He earned just 4 votes from the 16 voters and needed 12 to qualify.
I think thankfully for the Digits Dynasty here, we do not, though it would definitely help his status as a Hall of Famer, but we're looking at what you did on the field.
I have to ask you this, because I don't even know if we've ever talked about it. Do you care about the steroid era? Are you like, oh, these players' stats are inflated, this and that?
Personally, I don't. I think that was kind of right in my 98 when McGwire and Sosa had their thing. I was 9 years old. I loved Mark McGwire. There's nothing cooler than being like, this guy's going to hit home runs constantly and like 70 of them. And then beyond that, like moving to, I think Barry Bonds saw all the accolades that these guys were getting, and he's like, hey, I'm doing a smidge less than that without any help, so I'm gonna get some help here. I still think steroids just makes you hit the ball 450 feet as opposed to 400 feet. If he doesn't touch steroids, I think he still has I don't know if he's getting 755 home runs, but I think he's hitting 700 home runs. I think his career really doesn't fall off from what it did. Even if it's 90% of what he did, he's still probably the greatest baseball player of all time.
I tend to agree. And the fact that, they say that Sosa and McGwire home run race kind of saved baseball in a way.
I know now we're penalizing them.
Now we're vilifying these guys who saved baseball is a little bit of a catch-22 there, but it doesn't bother me.
So we had a lot of iconic players here that we talked about. I don't know that we need to. Do we need to debate? Is there a debate as to who our greatest 25 is going to be?
Not for me. Not for me. I mean, there's some great players on this list. Had they followed our guidelines and picked a number that they didn't have to do as much to get on the wall, then we would probably be talking more about them. But it's pretty cut and dry for me today.
Yeah, and I think despite even splitting his career with the 24 number and 25 number, I think Barry Bonds is the greatest 25. Jim Thome had 600 home runs. That's great. But I think the package that Barry Bonds brought to the table, I think, makes him that much better than any other player who wore a 25 on the back of their jersey.
Yeah, Thome could hit for power, but Bonds could do it all. He had all 5 tools.
I think we're in agreement. Get that really cool black and orange 25 Giants jersey. Put it up on the wall.
It's iconic. It is definitely an iconic jersey that I'm happy we're going to get up there.
From Riverside, California, left fielder for the San Francisco Giants, Barry Lamar Bonds.
Deals. And Bonds hits one high. Hits it deep. It is out of here. 756. Bonds stands alone. He is on top of the all-time home run list. What a special moment for Barry Bonds. And what a special moment for these fans here in San Francisco. There it is.
Yeah, his number 25 was retired by the San Francisco Giants. Also going to be retired by us at the Digits Dynasty. But let's look ahead to see what we got going on next week. Spin the wheel again. Got 92. Initial thoughts, I think we're looking football. I think baseball, basketball, not really going to have anybody. Yeah, but our defensive lineman, Reggie White, I think is definitely going to be up there. Michael Strahan, he was number 92, our sacks leader, single season. I think there's a couple other defensive guys that will kind of make the list. Say James Harrison, I feel like that's a 92.
Certainly.
But yeah, we'll look a little bit more. Get back to you guys next week when we talk about the number 92. But there we have the greatest number 25 of all time in our books, Barry Bonds. Write us, let us know if you agree, disagree, if there are any players that we missed. Our email address is digitsdynastypodcast@gmail.com. Our Instagram handle is Digits Dynasty Podcast. Next week, we will take a look at the number 92. If there are any players that are not to be left off the list, any stories that need to be told about players who wore the number 92. The email address again is digitsdynastypodcast@gmail.com. Now, I mentioned Nick Anderson earlier. And when I was a young, impressionable child playing Sega Genesis, NBA Jam was my jam.
He's on fire.
And so Nick,
he's heating up.
Nick Anderson, he was just the greatest. I loved him as like a 3-point shooter. So I always chose the Orlando Magic. Nick Anderson, Scott Skiles. And yeah, I was just going to go through some of the iconic slogans that was mentioned in NBA Jam. You mentioned he's on fire, But some of the ones I always liked, at the end of the games, I feel like you'd hit that 1-3 or hit that one shot and it'd say the nail in the coffin. And I always liked that one. Not that it happened to me too often, but can't buy a bucket. Puts up a brick. But yeah, then is it the shoes? I think that's one of the more iconic. Is it the shoes? The boom shakalaka?
Boom shakalaka.
Jams it in. But yeah, he's heating up. And then, once you're on fire, it was just, it was so good. Slamma-jamma, jams it in. That's Monster Jam. Of course, NBA Jam did not contain the likes of Michael Jordan. He was not part of the Players Association. Yeah, no Michael Jordan in NBA Jam, which is kind of too bad. I think they had, Horace Grant and Scottie Pippen on the Bulls. So Mark Turnell, the creator of NBA Jam, who happened to be a Pistons fan, he affirmed a long-held suspicion that the game had a bias against the Chicago Bulls. According to Turnell, the game had special code that caused the Bulls to miss last-second shots in close games versus the Pistons. What a grudge to hold in this iconic basketball game. I guess I never really played with the Bulls, so I never really experienced this, but what a move.
I'm a fan of that level of petty.
I love it.
And especially as a bit of a Bulls hater, no secret that I grew up a Pacers fan and had my heart driven with the spike many times by the Bulls. Gosh, I love it. I love that the Bulls can't win against the Pistons. I love that he can create that code too. It often makes me wonder what other codes are in other video games that prevent me from winning.
I know.
And that it is actually impossible, but fantastic. Even if you're on fire, I wonder how that would work. Could you be on fire going into the end of the game?
Well, I also feel like being on fire,
you don't miss.
But you'd still have to be inside half court though, right? Like I don't think you'd be.
Do you?
I don't think you were able to take like full court shots.
Okay, but you're still.
No,
it's the final shot, and you're on fire. Does the game just explode inside of your console?
It's like, oh no. My brother was a couple years older than me, and we used to play NBA Jam a lot. And I could not beat him. I don't know what it was. There was one time where I think we finally got, that was like 10 seconds left, and I think I was up by like 3, 4, something like that. Maybe even less. I don't know if I had the ball, and he turned off the game. And
that's a total older brother.
Oh my gosh. And I was...
Loser move.
I complained. He listens to this, but I think I went up to my mom or dad and was like, he did this, and like, what do you want me to do about it? And I don't know if he knows this, but I think later on, I played a game where I said it was a 2-player game, and I just like won, so that his record had that loss.
As you should have.
Yeah. Sorry if you're finding it right now, but I think that happened.
As a fellow younger brother, I approve.
Thank you for listening, and please join us next week as we count down another number on the list.